Hi everyone, welcome to the Bellevue Branch Library. I'm Susan Shin Andersen. I'm one of your counselors at large, also deputy mayor. And thank you so much for taking out the time to come on this very cold day, cold night, to get engaged and hear what's going on in town. Just a little bit about me, in case you didn't know. I've been a resident of Montclair since 2009. I moved here in September of 2009 from the city. I attended law school at Rutgers Newark, and this is how I found out about Montclair, because my friends and I used to come here to go to the Claridge, go to the cafe. I think it was called Cafe Eclectic on Bloomfield Avenue. We would come here to eat. And so that's how I first learned about Montclair. So when I was looking for a place to move to get out of the city, Montclair is one of the first places I thought of. I have been a long-time volunteer for different nonprofit organizations, including Tony's Kitchen. I've been a member of the advocacy committee and engaged in civic engagement work with AAPI New Jersey. I volunteered at my faith house, which is St. Luke's, as a vestry member for many years. My late daughter, who attended the public schools, just loved getting involved in the schools as well. So I wanted to run for council after doing all of that, because I really do care about the people of Montclair. I care about the health and vitality of this town. I care about preserving as much as possible of the diversity here, including socioeconomic diversity. I really value all the people that I've worked with, who have been, a lot of them have been longtime residents. And so those are some of the reasons why I decided to run. Also, just professionally, as I said, I have a law degree, and most of my career has been in research administration. So I've worked for a couple of very, very large academic medical institutions. I spent a number of years negotiating contracts with large companies to facilitate research, and my role in the last 6 years or so has been policy and procedures development. So that's a little bit about me, and we're just gonna, get started. Just so you know the agenda. I'm going to have a little bit of intro, and then I'm very happy to have some presentations by Township staff. One topic that I wanted to make sure we cover is stormwater management. Lieutenant Tyrone Williams is going to be talking about holiday crime prevention and a license plate reader program. And Mr. Lapola, who's the interim town manager, is going to give a quick update on the status of the budget preparation for next year. And then after all of that, I'm going to give some quick updates to tell you what I've been up to and some of my other council colleagues have been up to. Finally, I would like to have a very short discussion about something that I'm very passionate about, which is transportation initiatives. And then the rest of the time, hopefully, we'll have at least 40 minutes for question and answer, including a couple of questions that came in by email. So, yeah. All right, just really quickly, I wanted to make you all aware that all of this information is on the website. The 2025 meeting agenda, meeting schedule is not yet on the website because we're still in 2024, but there's one last meeting for this year, which is the 17th. And then you can see the rest of the schedule. All of these meetings, I'm sure many of you know, are held at 205 Claremont at 7 o'clock. There are a couple of meetings in February, that the February meetings are going to be starting at 6 o'clock, and I believe that's because of the budget hearings. Very quickly, because I wanted to just bring this up because I know that I've heard from some of you that you may not have gotten an email from the township on Monday. So I wanted to just make sure to try to get information and news about this notice about this meeting in as many different forms as possible. I know a lot of people are not on social media, so I did ask to have it emailed to those people who signed up to get alerts from the town. There seems to be an issue, so I did raise that with the communications director, and there is actually a communications committee, that's a council committee, a new one, scheduled for tomorrow, and Councilor Williams and Councilor D'Amato are on that. I believe the mayor is as well, and hopefully they'll be able to start to address that, because I'd like to know why the majority of people who have signed up have not gotten emails. So, but in case you are not signed up to get notifications from the township, this is information. I'm going to ask if this slide deck can be published. But you can go right on the website, and there's a section called Emergency Notifications. If you click on that icon, you can sign up to get alerts by text and or email through GetRave. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So next I'm going to just I'm going to ask Mr. Austin Ashley to come and talk about stormwater, and then I'll be back to talk about, to give you some updates from me after the township presentations.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Austin Ashley. I'm the Director of Community Services for the Township of Montclair. With me is Roberto Hernandez from Negli Engineering. He's manages our floodplain. He's our floodplain manager and also does our reviewing for applications for small and development and also large development. Any kind of development within the township, Roberto and the staff at Negli Engineering review. So we'll start with just a brief introduction of what our stormwater system composes of within the Township of Montclair. There's approximately 2,500 road inlets, and an inlet is what you would see at the side of the road. It's a curb head inlet for most cases. In some cases, could be just the grate that you would see if there is not a space for a curb head inlet, and that connects to approximately 42 miles of pipe work. Now, the interesting or the fascinating thing about the system is it's not a system in the true sense of the word, meaning it's not a uniform system. It wasn't designed at one point. A lot of these are the older sections of our stormwater system were just encapsulated creeks or rivers. As the township developed, there's obviously a need to move water away from where the development is, and that would happen over a period of time. So one section might be a box culvert, which is just simply what it sounds like is a box over the top of a existing creek, or it could be a clay pipe that is conveying water through a property into a natural stream. So there's not a true, in sense of the word, uniform system. This makes it difficult to properly plan when you don't know the exact extent of all the specifics for the individual pipes and throughways. We do have a number of streams and tributaries that run through the township. All of them make their way eventually to the Passaic. That's our drainage basin. Okay. So what are we doing with this stormwater? Where is it coming from? Now, this basically is the hydraulic cycle. So water evaporates, it comes down in rain, it falls onto the earth, and if it's a field or a mountaintop or something without development, it can percolate back into the surface. And if the ground is not saturated already, it can take that water. If it becomes to the saturation point, it then flows to its easiest path of least resistance to the lowest point in the terrain. What happens when there's development is that runoff increases. So any kind of non-permeable surface, a rooftop, a roadway, a driveway, brick pavers, all contributes to having the water not be able to perk into the groundwater, into the ground system, which creates more stormwater runoff. And that's a problem for a number of reasons, not the least of which is flooding, but also contamination into our water supply in general. As the water runs across the surface of the roads or the lawns, as if it doesn't perk, it picks up pollutants, litter, and other contaminants. A big contaminant is brake dust, oils from cars, oils from the road itself. All that contaminants makes its way into our water system, into the rivers that we fish and swim in, and ultimately to the waters that we drink. Okay. So in Montclair, so what are we doing? We're required by the state to have a number of different action plans. And I think, Norberto, would you be better to go into what our stormwater pollution and prevention plan? Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. So, yeah, as Austin mentioned, there are certain mandates that the state of New Jersey requires municipalities to adhere to. Township of Montclair is considered a Tier A municipality, so that has certain procedures, protocols, restrictions that need to be followed when it comes to water quality with respect to stormwater management and rainfall. So that the intention there is to control and limit the amount of pollutants that are entering into the waterways and then needing to be treated subsequently through the water distribution system, and also the waterways that make it to its way to the rivers and eventually the ocean. So the township annually needs to keep records of street sweeping. We need to go in and regularly inspect and clean the storm drains to make sure that they're not filled with debris and material. That's what ultimately makes its way downstream during rainfall events. So all that needs to be done on a routine basis. Now, Montclair, as Austin mentioned, has several thousand catch basins and manholes spread across the town. So oftentimes you'll see collection maybe of leaves and debris at the surface. Doesn't necessarily mean that the township is not cleaning them. It's just a matter of the rotation as we make our way around town. Also keep in mind as well that when rainfall does occur, it naturally makes its way down to the lowest points in town. So, you can go and do your best job to make an area spotless. At the first rain, everything's going to collect back down to the lowest points. That's why we need to continually maintain and clean these areas. So that's really what our DPW personnel do on a regular basis to make sure that our system is functioning. And then when we do get these rainfalls, it's clear to the point of it can flow through, and then we do our best to keep on top of that during the storms with the personnel that we have.
The big thing to remember about the stormwater is really a time management. We're trying to slow the water down as much as we can in the areas where it's falling. A lot of the comments that we receive is we want a bigger pipe, we want more inlets, we want this, we want that. The simply collecting more water and moving it along the system faster will only cause more flooding in the area where it's moving to. The ideal solution is to have increased attention where it is falling, and release it over time. The other thing to remember too is these systems, and as I mentioned before, were not 120 years ago, weren't really designed to handle the types of storms that we're seeing now. We've all been through the last few months where we've seen more intense storms happening more frequently and then prolonged periods of nothing. So it's very difficult to build for a system that can handle that type of volume. If you look at a road that's been completely inundated with stormwater, you'd have to imagine what size pipe would that need to fit that amount of water, that volume, to move that along. And then again, we're not a oceanfront community. It would have to go somewhere, and it would just go further down the line into a neighboring community or further down the system. That's part of the reason why these rules and regulations were implemented in the first place, is to get more detention into the systems all around, because our efforts do impact our neighbors just as our neighbors' efforts impact us. Let's see. So these are the site conditions that can affect how the stormwater operates, the density of the soil. All this has to do with the percolation of the water back into the system. Ideally, as I said, all of these would be, all the water would perk back in and contribute to the groundwater, which ultimately would go back into our aquifer system and to the water that we use to drink. So here's an idea of the flood areas and how they have changed over time. As I said, we've experienced more heavy rain, more intense storms, and previous to this past spring and summer, I would have said less frequent but more intense. But the last season was more intense more often. And here's how you can see how the basin, as the basin fills up, where the water normally would collect, it naturally has more area to take up. So the floodplains have expanded, and you can look on the FEMA maps and just see how much the FEMA maps have changed even in the last 10 years. Also, a big thing about stormwater is the vegetation. We're currently planting. We're in our fall planting. It is a little bit late this year. It is in December, but each of these, keeping a healthy community forest is vital to managing stormwater. All these trees and brush and that all contributes to stopping runoff and pulling water and keeping it in place. Just to reinforce the soils. I don't know if you have any comments on the soils. Or the steep slopes review? Okay. You go for it.
Yeah, so as you can see in this image, this is just a rough illustration of a typical slope. Montclair, as we know, it's essentially on a big mountain and cut through. So there are certain areas in town, though, that have what we call steep slopes. And those are areas of town more so to the west of Upper Mount Avenue or Highland Avenue, those areas to the west of town. They are considered steep slopes and have more, they're more frequently prone to erosion and other environmentally sensitive issues when it comes to rainfall. So particularly the town has a steep slope ordinance which protects these areas when developed. So as you develop a steep slope property, there are certain limitations on what you can do and when stormwater management is required on your property. It is the most strictly enforced area in town when it comes to stormwater management. And also keep in mind that's where everything starts, essentially. So the more we can contain uphill, the better we can handle what happens downhill. So as you work your way further east, we have other rules in place now. Starting in 2021, we implemented what's called minor development rules by way of ordinance. And in essence, what's required now for developments, whenever a property is looking to be developed, expanded, improved, could be an existing single-family home, you'd like to put an addition on your yard, your rear yard, or expand your driveway. If what you're doing as part of your project as a whole, if it will result in what we call increasing impervious coverage. Now, just so everybody's on the same page, impervious coverage is anything that restricts or limits the natural infiltration of water through the ground. So that could be anything from a roof, a driveway, a pool, anything that you can imagine like that that's not some kind of vegetative or landscaped area. If that area exceeds 250 square feet, you then need to store, as Austin was saying, we're looking to store stormwater on your property. And that is in the form of, you can imagine a 2-gallon bucket of water on your property per square foot of impervious coverage that you're increasing. So 250 square feet of an increase in area, 25 by 10 patio, just imagine that. You now need to store 500 gallons of water on your property as part of that project. And that's intended to replicate the conditions that existed prior, whether it's a lawn or some kind of landscaped area. We want to replicate that infiltration condition, store the water, have it slowly release, and that on a large scale level helps on a cumulative effect to reduce the amount of flooding that's being exacerbated because of development. So as you go further downstream, we want to slow the water before it gets to the rivers to allow the water to flow through and then slowly let the rest go. And that's one of our major changes the township has made over the last few years to help reduce this issue where water is just rushing down the hill, down to the lowest points in the rivers and streams that flow through town, and then at that point it's too late. So that's a critical point of what I do on a daily basis and what we're looking to accomplish as a town.
Yeah, if you could look at, so the next slide is, that's what we used to have, the hydrologic cycle. Oh, it's gonna be rough. And that would have plenty of time. There would be flooding, of course, in certain circumstances, but the majority of the time you would have a normal functioning hydraulic cycle. And that now this is what you become. You have a tremendous amount of water focused into tiny areas. And as Norberto was saying, as by the time it gets to the areas that are flooding, it's too late. You need to start mitigation as where the water is falling.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If you put in a sidewalk or driveway pavers, does that help much? It is a little slightly permeable.
You're talking about driveway like brick pavers?
Yeah, that have spaces in between where the water can.
It really depends on the type of pavers you're installing. Typically, traditional pavers, yes, they have the joints in between, but the usual construction is that they're filled in with like a polymeric sand. And when it's installed, they wet it, essentially becomes like a cementitious material. So it does allow some infiltration. Even road asphalt, it's not 100% impervious. It does allow a very, very minor amount of infiltration. It's negligible though, when we're looking at it from a stormwater management perspective. However, there are other types of pavers, which are specifically permeable pavers. That could be a system that has some wider joints, and in that case, it's specifically filled in with a non-cementitious material, and that allows it to flow through. More recently, there's new kinds of pavers that have essentially voids in the center of them, and that could be filled in with like dirt and lawn, and grass can grow inside, so you'll have kind of like almost like a grid pattern of bricks, but filled in with grass instead of some kind of grout. But for just stormwater management perspective, when we review it, we assume that it's fully impervious. So you don't really get that credit because, for better or worse, it's a maintenance issue to continue. If you have a permeable paver system, it's a maintenance issue that you need to continually, maybe twice a year, once a year, clean out that area and allow for the water to continue to flow through. Otherwise, it gets just naturally collected with dirt and sediment, and it fills in those voids that allow the water to drain. So if it's not properly maintained, it then just becomes impermeable like any other, paver or concrete would. So when we review it, that's fine. You could use that kind of system, but when you're sizing your basin for, all intents and purposes, you have to assume that that's fully impervious. Mm-hmm. I saw your hand go up.
My question was, what triggers this review by the town and the requirement?
The amount of impervious coverage that you're increasing on your property.
An ordinance? Do you need a
It's an
permit?
ordinance. Yes.
It is an ordinance.
Yes. So if somebody,
I suspect not very many people take up the ordinance.
well,
So, you may be, I mean, 250 square feet is not a huge patio to put in,
it's not.
right? You could put it in yourself and nobody would know about it.
Well, the thing is, most times people don't just put a patio. They end up putting a patio with a grilling station, an outdoor kitchen, or some kind of, like I said, addition, a garage extension, or something like that. So those other things trigger building department permits. So you can't do that work without,
A terrific idea, a terrific thing to do, and it would be nice.
yeah. No, I can tell you from experience. I mean, I've probably reviewed, well, definitely at this point reviewed over 100 different applications that have come through the town just this year alone.
It's the permitting process that triggers it.
Correct,
Somebody
correct.
has to know they need a permit.
Yeah, and most people do want to, do the right thing and help. So even when they don't require necessarily a building permit, I have oftentimes had people reach out to me asking, I'm doing this project on my property, just a patio or whatever the case is. What do I need to do? And I explain, well, if you're doing that, you need to do some stormwater management, and they usually oblige. So it's been a good, I think, a good process that the town has implemented.
Maybe a dumb question, but
No dumb questions.
you said that you have to, if you get over the 250 square feet, you need to store 50 gallons?
2 gallons.
Two.
2 gallons per square foot that you're increasing. Yeah, yes. But so just to be clear, we do allow some, because 250 square feet is not a lot, right? So we understand too that doing something very minor on your project, sometimes it's not necessarily practical to now have to go and do this, extensive drainage system on your property. So if you're below that 250 square foot threshold, then you have some grace. You don't need to do that. It's only at 250 or greater is when it triggers the requirement. But it's also a cumulative effect. So you can't just skirt the rule by just doing a bunch of small little projects and then I don't have to do it. We keep track. And once you cross that 250 square feet, now it's on the table.
Could you explain the remedy? What are you building to store?
Yeah, so there's various different methods. Gentleman mentioned earlier, there's permeable pavers and permeable pavement systems, which again we treat as impervious, but do allow for infiltration. And if designed correctly, you can use it to store stormwater beneath it in the stone. So we'll have 2 feet of stone beneath the surface, and in that stone there's voids that you can store rainfall in, and that can be a method that you can hold that water back.
Doesn't that fill up eventually with dirt?
Well, that's the maintenance part of it. That's the maintenance part of it.
Dig up that whole pit?
No. It's through like a vac system. Basically, you just run a machine through and suck the fines out of the system, and then haul it off site and dispose of it. That's just a routine maintenance issue that you need to.
You have to hire someone to do that.
Yeah, if that's on your property, then yes, you would have to do that. Another way of doing it is, which is one of the more typical ways, is we call it a seepage pit or a dry well, which is just a tank. It could be a concrete tank. Some now newer systems, they're made of plastic, and they're again put underground, and that is a chamber underground that allows to store it, and then it has perforations all around on the side or opening on the bottom, and it allows it to drain vertically over time.
Be so many feet from someone's property.
At least 10 feet. At least 10 feet away from the property.
Maximum, you put one right next to my property line.
Yeah. Well, we require it to be a minimum of 10 feet, but we also, in certain cases, evaluate it further, and if it seems like it's still going to be too close to a property, they have to put it further away. But when we review something, it's always and that's an ordinance as well, requirement.
What about the storm drains? Are they built so that they drain the water? Or are they
In
just
this-
all concrete?
In the street,
Yeah.
the storm drains in the street are typically not open bottom. They're closed, and
Why?
the intention is to get it to the waterways. Now,
Wouldn't it help if you made them impervious?
the amount of rainfall that goes through that system can cause issues with erosion underground, and then you have sinkholes and collapses in the street. So that's, yeah. Well, that's the difference there. It's the volume. On a property, single-family home, the volume is much less. It can handle that amounts of storage. In the street, it's much greater. So we want to have it safely contained and get it to where it needs to go safely.
This is not meant to look for a way to skirt the rules. But
No means.
if I wanted to replace an existing concrete slab on my property that's all broken up, in the same footprint with another concrete slab,
Mm-hmm.
and it's over 250 feet, am I?
No, that's a good question. It's a net increase,
Okay.
just to be clear. So if you have an existing patio, you're just repairing it or replacing it from concrete to pavers or some bluestone slate, you're not increasing the footprint, it's a zero change. Similarly, if you have a patio in your backyard and you're putting an addition, but you're staying within that same footprint, it's a zero increase. So it's a net increase. So again, we do have some, it's not just,
Okay. Actually, you gave me some ideas. If I tear it up, maybe I will landscape it instead of replacing concrete.
yeah, in that case, you get a net decrease
Right.
credit. So we've had people come through and offer that solution, I want to install a garage in my backyard, but I'm going to remove a patio to offset that increase. That's fair. We're looking at on a net change basis. So, question. Yes.
What can the individual homeowner do to help mitigate the storm drainage issues? Like, for example, if every dwelling had a rain barrel, would that make a difference or no?
It would make a difference.
Would it make sense for the township to buy every dwelling a rain barrel? Would it make sense for the township to install like rain gardens at the schools, you know what I mean? Like anywhere there's public space. Would any of this, are we doing anything like any out of the box thinking? Are we getting the community involved? Like what can the community do?
Yeah. So as far as providing rain barrels, I don't think that's something we've historically done. It becomes a budget issue as well.
But I think the question is, would it really be effective?
But I think you would offset the cost of having to mitigate the storm. You know what I mean? Like, it would pay for itself, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the rain barrels will help. Everything helps, but there's a very limited volume when it comes to that.
But if every dwelling
Mm-hmm.
had a rain barrel, I know it's gotta be a volume, right? But would it make a difference?
Yes, it would make a difference. I can't say
So then the
what
question
the
is,
difference would
how
be.
much of a difference
Right,
would it make?
right. That's the major question. But I guess I'll jump into what we are doing. So that's everything I've talked about so far is really on the private development side. If you're a homeowner or a developer, you're looking to do something on your property, that's the requirements. On the township side, what we're currently planning to do, we haven't started this yet, but we will be starting shortly. We will be remapping our entire storm drainage network all across town. The mapping we have, it's helpful in some cases, but it is outdated by several decades, I would assume, at this point. And there's been a lot of instances that new infrastructure has been put in, or some instances that information is just missing. So what we want to do is map out as best we can our entire storm drainage network so we see what we have. What are we dealing with? We know there's some problem areas in town or areas that are prone to flooding during intense rainfalls. The solution isn't always just put another catch basin in because there's already 7 right next to each other. So it's not a matter of getting the water in, it's a matter of once it's in, it's got nowhere to go. Is there something we can do to potentially alleviate that situation? That's what we're starting to look into. but we need to first gather the information we have to then see what really is the root issues and how can we potentially alleviate those areas. So that's coming soon.
Oh, so I was just asking you, do you know what the timeline is?
It's probably going to take at least a year just to map out the entire town. Again, it's 82 miles of road that we need to physically go and locate all the structures and do the investigations. And there's also various areas where storm sewers run through private properties as well. So there's a lot of gray areas as well as far as what's there. I've known areas that I've looked at, and as you go through, everything changes. The pipe size, the material, the configuration can vary greatly from one end of the street to the other end of the street if it goes through private property areas. So.
I have one other quick question. When we were talking about, I've been here since 2000, and we have a situation happening on Walnut Street that is tremendous, where the water is coming down into the properties. And again, for as long as I've been there, this past year, yes, we have that major storm, so I can't really attribute it to just that. But in this past year, unfortunately, since my neighbors took over this property, the water has risen from the back of my property to almost the edge of the house. And it's probably about 3/4 acre. So I can see the tremendous difference, and granted, it was one major storm, but then another and another, and it's still doing it. What I've noticed is, yes, he was required to put in some sort of storage. I don't know how big it is underneath, none of that information is shared with us as to what it is. It was already done by the time. It's a small square you see in the back, but he built his land up about 12 inches probably, 12 inches, higher than my land, which kind of makes my land the catch-all basin for everything coming down the top. And since the water comes from the top, we have this structure that was allowed to be built at the very top of Walnut Valley, and it's all asphalt. And then we've got the structures that were built on Talbot, I think that is, where also a lot of asphalt. Now, that's always been considered Frog Hollow, so it's always been an issue, but now there's literally no vegetation or way to catch the water. And then with that rise in the land, I'm wondering, was that allowed in it, or, are you allowed to do that just because you have a storage storm type of thing? Because literally, I have pictures where it looks like a waterfall into my land. Because literally, I have pictures where it looks like a waterfall into my land.
The answer to that question is it depends, because the rule that we're talking about now is relatively new over the last couple of years. It was in place in I believe March of 2021. So anything before that didn't need to adhere to these requirements. It just didn't exist. Not that they did anything wrong, there's nothing to comply with at that time. So we're talking about new developments recently that were done, require that to be reviewed and adhere to a certain standard, and moving forward, until we get this point, there's no plans to really change that.
So is it considered a new development if the entire garage was torn down and then rebuilt larger than what it was before, as well as adding on a patio that was large enough to hold this, large enough that the patio would sit down and the grill and the whole thing? Again, I know there is some storm water management thing that's happening. We can't tell.
Yeah, I mean,
Those buildings, the ordinance, is it large enough for the space that he has? Because his property is as big as mine.
Yeah.
Well, it is as big as mine, and the property next to him is also the same. And we're both being affected.
if you'd like, I'll give you my card.
Absolutely.
And you can, if you could give me a call or send me an email or whatever with the location, and I can see what I may have on my end, records, and we can see what's going on.
And I'm open to what everyone is saying here as far as rain barrels. I can't even put any vegetation back there because the subdivision stopped.
Yeah.
So I need to know what the next step is, and I'm willing to do my part. But if this has caused that tremendous amount of impact, I think we have to find a way to work together to get it resolved from the top to the neighbors all down to us also.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, absolutely. I appreciate it.
I think you're.
Yeah, Sherry, well, I'm Sherry Avenger, she's Sherry Blair. We're the Sherrys.
Thank you for your question. I think you might have a couple more slides. I just want to make sure we can go to the next couple of them.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. has any further questions, again, feel free to give me a call anytime.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much. I know flooding has been a big problem increasingly, so I wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to get eyes on the people who are working on this. And so the next is Lieutenant Tyrone. Lieutenant Tyrone is, do you all know Lieutenant Tyrone? If you don't, you should. So, come on over.
I don't think I need to voice the microphone. I'm pretty loud. So, for those that don't know me, I am Lieutenant Williams. Got it over there. I am Lieutenant Williams from Montclair Police Department, and on behalf of Chief Conforti, Deputy Chief Young, bring you greetings. I am going to talk to you about a couple things real quick. Safety for this time of year, and also the ALPRs, which is our automated license plate readers that we're going to be getting soon. Just give you a little background. I've been with the police department about 25 years. I command the community policing unit. You see one of my officers, Officer Wiley, will be passing out some information for you guys. Community policing, just so you know, is what we would call the ambassadors of the police department. We're the guys that go out and do the non-traditional type police stuff that you probably don't know we even do, right? So a lot of times when something happens in the community or at your home, when you call, a patrol officer responds, and the guy's in the uniform in the marked car. So as you can see, I wear what's called a soft uniform, because I'm more of a blending into the community as part of the softer side of policing is what I like to call us. And what I like to say about me and my guys, where there's a gap, we build the bridge. Where there's a wall, we tear it down. We are the link that connects community and the police department together, so that, you know, when you have concerns, we come out and address concerns and see if we can come together with the community members to come with viable solutions to address any type of community concerns and things of that nature. So we're here tonight at the request of our deputy mayor, and I will talk to you about something that we have coming, which is our ALPRs, our automated license plate readers. A lot of communities throughout the state are getting those, and what they are, you might have seen some already, but we're really bulking, building them up. We have some cars that already have those, and there are these things that sit on there, and they're really like cameras that come from all angles, and as a car passes them, they can read a few hundred plates in a matter of seconds. And what that will do for us is, I know that everybody here is probably aware, unfortunately, we've had a real uptick in stolen cars. And it's not unique to New Jersey, it's not unique to Montclair. This is something that's going on nationwide. Unfortunately, it's almost like an ordering thing. There's this hierarchy that tells people, you bring me these kind of cars, I'll give you money. And 9 times out of 10, before we finish the report, they're in the container and on their way overseas somewhere. So it's become a very lucrative business. So much so that it's really a part of organized crime now. I can tell you a real quick story I heard the other day. A cousin of mine who lives in Brooklyn went outside, no tires on his car. Somebody stole his car and left it sitting there on blocks. He's like, what to do? So he's in the music industry, entertainment. He does engineering. He calls somebody from the local neighborhood that, knows a little bit about everything. Bottom line is, the next day, the wheels were put back on his car. Because the person that he contacted called some right people and said, hey, you get those wheels back here or there's going to be hell to pay. And so it's real. I mean, that's what it's gone to now. And unfortunately, as much as law enforcement, as we try to stay ahead of it, the minute that we get one thing down, they shift it to something else. Okay, we got to change how we do business. One of the things that we're doing to help us is the automated license plate readers. And a lot of towns are getting those. There are some grants out there, and we're looking into some of that to help fund it. But basically, these things sit at the entrances and exits of town. So as cars come in, they read certain plates, and if the car was reported stolen, we get alerted right away. So now we can send cars to a certain area. Say if we know a car came in from Clifton down Grove Street, and the APLR up there alerts our dispatch and can say, hey, we just had a stolen car that's traveling south on Grove Street. We can start to send cars that way, because what we do know is they come up in stolen cars to steal cars. And sometimes they'll leave the one they came in and take what they, and it's really become a problem, because we used to be able to say, we haven't experienced them going into people's houses. Unfortunately, we can't say that anymore. All right, they are going into houses. So for that reason is why I have some of these tips here, crime prevention tips, to be able to, what we call, harden your targets. Make it harder to be victimized. Because fortunately, we have not had any, we have had one or two that have come into contact with the homeowner, but they have just retreated and gone out. They have not, gotten physical or violent within the home. Once they see the other person, they turn the other way and they're gone. So what we would like to say is, during this time of year, not only for that, but it is the season to be jolly. People are going out shopping, putting stuff in their cars, leaving things in their cars, which we advise against. Once you go shopping, bring your stuff in the house. All right, don't leave it in your cars. Secure it. Make sure your cars are secure. Make sure your houses are secure. All of these things are listed here on these 2 sheets of paper, so I'm really not going to go down it. But the one thing that I am going to, and I try to leave with every group that I speak to, if you see something, say something. If something doesn't feel right, if I had $1 over my 25 years for every time I went to follow up behind, because I was an investigative supervisor for many years, and people would say, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard something, and I just thought, maybe it was, I saw the light on in the backyard. I thought it was a deer. We're here 24/7, 365 days a year. If you think something's suspicious, call us. You're not bothering us. That's what we're here for. Because a lot of times, if we know that there's things going on and we can get cars in that area, we can probably prevent some of the things, or at least deter it once we get there, if we didn't even catch the person in the act. So if you hear something, if you see something, say something, call us. Don't think you're bothering us. That's the one thing that I hear all the time. We didn't want to bother you. Please bother us, all right, please. Because a lot of times, as a supervisor, what I will say, if we could get people there in time, and we need your eyes and ears. We can't do it all on our own, and they've gotten sophisticated, because they know if they see that one area, they don't stay in any one area. Nobody's exempt from being targeted, because they change different, and it's actually a lot of their shopping when they come up here looking for these cars. They teach us sometimes, because one of the things that a few years back, right, towards the middle into COVID, what we found out is the way they were shopping is most of the newer cars now, if you don't lock it, your mirrors stay out. With the newer cars, once you push lock, they fold in. Well, guess what? People were leaving their fobs in their cars, so they wouldn't lock them. So all they did was went down the street and looked for the newer cars with the mirrors out. Those were the ones they went up to and checked the door handle. And a lot of times, there was a fob in the car. I'm ashamed to say we've had some people that have been victimized more than once with the same thing. So what we just help us help you. If you hear something, say something. If it doesn't feel right, trust your instinct. Trust that gut instinct. Call us. Yes, ma'am.
When you say call us, I see, would you rather have us call the police department or 911?
So, very good question. 911 is only for emergencies, because what happens is, if there is something going off and another 911 call comes in, all the focus goes there. So please call our non-emergency number unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, please don't hesitate to call 911. But our non-emergency number is very easy, 973-744-1234. Very easy, okay? Any questions so far? Because I don't want to take up too much time, but any questions that you might have that I can answer? Sir?
The license plate readers. Nowadays, when you drive, you see license plates with covers that are making it impossible for me with my eyesight to read the license plate. Will the machine adjust for things like that and bicycle racks?
The machine's eyes are much better than ours. And it's not rocket science. It's a computer. It crunches numbers. So all it needs is a quick picture of those numbers and boom, it's processing. There's actually a processor in the car in the trunk area that actually processes and crunches these numbers like more than we could ever imagine.
What about the cars that don't have a license plate? Is that sober picking that up in the assumption that it's a silver car?
So the good thing about those types of cars is usually with the patrol officer. That's like kind of a key indicator. One of the things I was always taught as a young officer, if you see that license plate and it's not sitting in there correctly, or that temporary plate looks like it's dirty or crooked, you might want to investigate that a little more. So the LPR won't really deal with that because it won't read those numbers that I know of. Now I will say, we're a little more advanced now, so the ones nowadays may even pick that up because we did change our temporary plates. So they may be picked up with the LPR now. I'm not sure on that. I'm gonna have to check. That's a good question.
About what you're saying, how to become more organized, and if they know that the software has a faulty area, that might be a new thing.
Well, they actually don't want to. They don't want the cars with temporary plates because they're trying not to draw attention to themselves, and they know that if it looks regular, and what they do sometimes is the cars that they steal, they take those plates and put them on the new car that they stole. So sometimes, a lot of times, when we are recovering the cars, we're finding that one plate is missing.
So basically, we need to keep our college students' car with the dent in the side and
Yeah, put that at the end of the driveway. Yeah, make it more difficult for it to go out. Yeah, but I will tell you, we've had them go completely around the cars in the driveway, up on the lawn. They want that car. And again, one thing I will say, please don't get out there and become like, the car can be replaced. All right. So that's why we pay insurance, unfortunately, if it does happen. But please don't. We've had people grab on the cars, run behind the person, and we don't want people hurt. We can replace the car, but some of us are getting a little north side of 40 and stuff like that. Takes us a little longer to recover from injuries, and even for replace something, we may not be able to do that. So, all right. Anything else? Please feel free if you ever need any questions. One thing I will say again too, when we talk about target hardening in your homes, my unit and my guys will come out to your home and do a security survey. So we actually give you a written report as to what it is. Like I will tell you, when I first went to I took my guys and we went to crime prevention course. And so we did security surveys there, and I decided when I came back I was going to do it at my church. And I go, my goodness. I walk up, all of our hinges were faced the wrong way at the church. All you had to do was take the pin out the door and take the doors off, and you could go right in. Simple things that you really don't normally think of, we look at when we do security surveys. So feel free to call us at the community policing unit, Montclair Police. We're very easy to get in touch with. You call, ask for Lieutenant Williams or one of the community policing officers. They'll put you into our extension, and we can come out and do a security survey or answer any questions or come out and address any concerns you might have in your community. And I will say too, I encourage people, as I say, we need you to help us help you. We have one area that was getting hit pretty hard, and one of the things that we're doing now is I intend to establish our most robust neighborhood watch program in that area. and then I would like it to go throughout town. It's something that we used to do more of, and like about the 2000, late 90s, we had neighborhood watch programs, and people would talk. And what that program is, the actual neighborhood owns the program, and the police are a partner in it. There's signage. It's a national program that was done by the sheriff's department. But I strongly recommend that groups, we have to get back to talking to our neighbors, because that's one of our problems. We also, everybody's busy. People don't know their neighbors anymore, so we don't talk, we don't communicate. So that's one of the things that is making it a little easier for those guys that are not from our neighborhood, not in our community, to come in and just go undetected. So if you guys are interested in doing a neighborhood watch program, please contact me or one of my officers, because we want to have them all over town so that we're all in conversation and talking to each other. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Lieutenant Tyrone. Next. Oh, okay. Thank you both. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Lieutenant Tyrone. Next up is Manager Michael Lapola. And hi, Councilor Lockman. How are you? My fellow at-large counselor, she's here too.
Let me go get my phone.
All right, I'll start talking. I just wanted to give you a little of my background before I get started. I joined Montclair in August of 2023 with the intent of continuing part-time for 3 months. I've been here a little longer than I expected. My background is I have been a practicing attorney for the last 43 years. Way back when I was 26 years old, I was, all right, just stop it for now. All right. All right, okay. When I was 26 years old, I was elected a freeholder in Union County. I had the distinction, dubious sometimes I thought, of being the youngest person ever elected a freeholder in the state of New Jersey. I served 2 terms there. I then served as an assistant counsel to the governor. I was state director for United States Senator Bill Bradley. I spent 6 years as the first assistant prosecutor in Union County, 6 years as the Union County manager. Union County is the only county that has a county manager form of government, where the manager has the power of a county executive, except they serve, it's an appointed position, and you have a term. I then left there and I became the executive director of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, where my first assignment was to merge us with the Highway Authority, combining, so I was in charge of both the Turnpike and the Parkway, Easy Pass, tolling, all of that for 6 years. I then left for the private sector, where I became managing director of a infrastructure investment firm based in Madrid, because in the rest of the world, toll roads, ports, marinas, airports are mostly private. I retired from there. I think I retired 3 times so far. Did some consulting, and then in the summer of 2023, I was in a diner in Point Pleasant Beach, ran into my old friend Joe Hartnett, who I made the mistake of giving my business card to. He called me the next month and he says, "You do me a favor and take a job in Montclair for a few months." I told him no 3 times. My wife persuaded me to say, "Well, you know, you're retired, you don't golf, you don't play tennis, and perfecting a martini is not a sport." So I did take the job, and I'm still here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the budget, just briefly, and then I want to address certain issues that I think are topical. Okay, so I'm just going to do some basic slides about information on the average assessed home, not the value of your home, the assessed value of your home. The average home is assessed at $635,000 and pays property taxes of approximately $22,000. If you look at the big pie chart over here, out of that, if you were paying $21,995, $12,463 goes to the school, $3,722 goes to the county, $5,392 goes to municipal government. It's a separate library tax. They do receive other funding from us. So the average home in town pays approximately $300 for the library system, and Essex County has an open space tax, which pays for improvements in parks and playgrounds, where you pay approximately $136. Okay, just percentage-wise, this is the same thing. Schools are almost 57%. Our share is a little less than 25%. The county is about 17%. The library is about a point and a third, and the county open space tax is a little bit less than a percent. I just wanted to talk about the process of the budget. So under the law, as the manager of the town is the chief executive officer. That's even the language that's used in the statute. It basically is the elected officials here. They appoint me and separately the attorney, the township attorney, and the clerk. Maybe if there's deputy attorneys too. They appoint the manager. The manager then is in charge of all of the employees. It works this way. Theoretically, the elected officials set policy, and all dealings or activities with employees go through the manager's office. Under the statute regarding the budget, the administration develops the budget. We are required to have a hearing with our department heads where they put forth their ideas as to what they would like to see in the following year's budget. We had a public hearing last month. It was televised and I think shown several times on Channel 34. We then, what's that? It's on YouTube? Great, thank you, Rick. So what's happening now is we're finalizing a draft to work with. It is not a final budget. We're working with the finance committee of the council. We will sit down with them and prioritize where the spending is going to be. As a former elected official, I truly appreciate the fact that how you spend every dollar, the elected officials are policymakers, and how you spend every dollar is policy. If you choose to spend $1 on hiring a police officer and not hiring a nurse, that's your policy. So a budget to me is the ultimate policy document. It reflects the priorities of the elected officials. It reflects the priorities they believe that the town expects. So that budget reflects their policy. So when we're working with them, our goal is to have, as we do this, I know that they want to have numerous public hearings once they decide on what the budget's going to look like, to get further input before they finalize, that budget. It will then be under the statute introduced. I would then have, because it would be close to final, public hearings myself with staff to answer very specific questions. They're going to have their own public hearings too. We're trying to make it as transparent as possible so you get to have your input, and then ultimately it is adopted, and the goal is to have it adopted, introduced by the end of January and have it adopted by March. So that's basically where we are. I'm going to give you an overview of where we are financially in the town. Under New Jersey law, there's something called the cap law, which you probably have read in the newspapers or online or whatever. It's basically, you take your budget, certain things you can deduct. So our budget, say it's approximately $100 million. So there's certain things you take out that are not part of the cap calculation. The cap calculation says you can only increase spending here 2%. So out of that $100 million, we deduct about 33 million, and then on that 67 million that's remaining, we can only increase spending 2%. So what are we faced with this year? We're faced with healthcare costs for employees increasing 16%, other insurances going up 8%, our pension contributions going up, I believe for police and fire, north of 5%, and then for public employees union a little bit less. And then we also are, I'm being very direct with everybody, we have out of our 400 full-time employees, we have about 437. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I count some of those grant-funded positions twice. We have approximately 50 employees that are not in unions and all the rest that are in unions. A while back, contracts were negotiated where, and I'm not faulting the people who negotiated them on a 6 and 7 year contract, but in the early years, the raises were below the cap, and next year, they're 3.25% and 3.5%. So you have a 2% cap, and your biggest drivers are salaries of police and fire, and their increases are over 3%. Budgetarily, we are in a very, very difficult position. So our goal is there'll be no new, it'll be a net zero in terms of positions. I know that the mayor and council have been very, very clear about the fact that, you know, this budget is going to be, I don't want to use the term austere, but it's going to be a lot of tough decisions have to be made. I want to talk about something else in terms of capital budgets. And since I'm only here temporarily, I could be a little controversial sometimes. In the past 40 years in this town, we spent a lot of money on roads. They built a fire headquarters about 30-some, I don't know what year that was. 2004, and spent nothing else on facilities. You look in here and see you almost kill yourself on the ice coming off the roof here in the back. They have a roof problem here. The main library's got problems. If you've ever been to 205 Town Hall, we are now replacing the 515 ceiling tiles that are water stained from the multiple leaks in the roof. Police headquarters is, I would say the police department is well run and it is clean, but as police departments go, if you travel around the state of New Jersey, I would describe the building itself as an embarrassment. Police headquarters, town hall, these buildings should have been replaced 20 and 30 years ago. I think we almost missed a generation and there's been no investment in these buildings. When I tell you 205, they decorated the lobby in 1985 and nothing has been touched since. We have torn carpeting, we have window bricks that are falling off the building. We're trying to keep it together, and I know that this new group of elected officials have made this a priority. I know these are big ticket items which require a lot of planning, but I do think, I have to tell you, when I first got this job, and I had never been to town hall, I had never met anybody who was on the council at the time, except for Councilor Russo, who I met in the 70s on a political campaign. I came thinking I was going to walk into this majestic town hall. Instead, I walked into a place that is in dire need of major investments. Actually, I don't think you can invest enough money to fix it. We're looking now, and it's a long-term plan, to, you know, and it's been talked about for years, is a mixed use of police, a new police headquarters with a new town hall. It's going to be a big ticket item. It's going to require a lot of planning, but it's going to be necessary. We can sell some of the other properties if we can and offset some of the costs, but it's inevitable to do this. I mean, it really is a requirement. I think it's a requirement that we do something to invest in the facilities. It's the same thing with the libraries. I met with the executive director of the library. The problems they're having in their buildings are the same thing. Virtually every building we own, with the exception of the fire headquarters, is literally falling apart. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's a discussion that we're starting to have. The high school, that the Board of Education is separate. All right, it's not, please. I have enough. And we have a good working relationship with the high school. And I just wanted to touch on one other topic, which I know has been in the news in the past few days. And I'm never someone to shy away from controversy if I have to. But I made a determination after consulting with the police chief and with Lieutenant Williams to end our chaplains program at the police department. And we've had a controversy between two groups about whether there was anti-Semitic intent and this and that and postings on Facebook. I'm not going to get into that debate, and I condemn anything that's anti-Semitism or anything that's anti-any religion. That being said, I just wanted to explain to you my logic here. So we have chaplains from all different faiths. We have people, freedom of speech. You know, I was 13 years at Catholic school, and I had the scars to prove it. But if you look at the tenets of many religions have things that might offend somebody. So as I was talking to the chief and Lieutenant Williams, I said, so what happens if a priest, hypothetically, a priest posts on his private Facebook, join me at a rally, an anti-abortion rally at this clinic? Or, you know, and there's other religions that may say, post things that are anti-gay marriage because that's a tenet of their religion. I do not think as a public official, I don't have the ability or should not have the responsibility to decide through a First Amendment issue, it's freedom of religion, it's freedom of speech. While I am a well-paid public official, that is far above my pay grade to make that decision. This was not intended to avoid a hard decision. It was not intended to take one side over the other. But as we went through scenarios now, as people are saying, we're going through all, with social media, you know, I describe myself as technologically challenged. I don't spend a lot of time, I'm not on Instagram, I don't do these things that my kids do, and they prefer that. I joined Facebook because of a high school reunion thing, but that's not my thing. However, many people scrutinize other people's social media. So if we're going to go and have members of the clergy volunteer, and then people are going to go through their personal, because some of them are public, you know, social media and come out and say, well, they 4 years ago posted this or last month did that. I can't do that. I refuse to do it. So in consultation with the chief and with Lieutenant Williams, and it was Lieutenant Williams who started this chaplains program, we were all in agreement that the way it is now, it's not working and can't work. We still will rely on the clergy when they are needed, and maybe it could be reconstituted in a way that that it can work again. But right now, with the social media aspect of this, we did not think that after this controversy, next week could be another controversy, and we were hearing these things, and it's like we just can't do that. So it's not a question of you know, looking for the easy way out. I am the you know, amongst, you heard I always joke when I go through you reach a certain age where your resume sounds like your obituary. But you know, I was the founder and first chair of the Union County Human Relations Commission, and I don't shy away from these issues, but we thought this was the best decision to make. Some people disagree, and they're entitled to do that, but I thought since you know, a lot of the media that we deal with is about clickbaits and not about the full story, so I thought I would say this because it's on film, and you can feel free to ask me questions, disagree with me, it's okay. But I thought it important, since this is out there, that I explain my reasoning in more detail. And if you have any questions on any subject involving the township, please feel free to ask.
Actually, this is a question for the council, more than for you, I might be able to shed some light, sure, that's okay. I've lived in town for a long time, and I was really upset by some of the problems that occurred in the town, like one of the pools not opening, a walkway down adjacent to the parking deck not getting a certificate of occupancy because somebody didn't figure out that it was non-conforming and needed to do something about that. And there are a number of other things, I can't remember right now, but there are a lot of things that were poorly done in town. And I don't want to go back over them again, but this is my question. I know that the town manager is appointed by the council and is responsible for running the town. But what role does the town council have? What role do you think you have to make sure that the interim or the permanent town manager is making sure that people that report to him or her are doing their job? I don't, you know,
I think you might have that answer.
I would be interested because I understand my brother-in-law who is a professional town manager, and has been doing this for many years, that there are best practices with respect to that.
And this governing body is extraordinarily responsive to their constituents. I don't go a day without multiple requests. If you sent Councilor Shin Andersen an email, or the other councilors back there, and say, I have a problem with this or this or this, they get it to me, and sometimes it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 4 in the afternoon, they're like, well, you haven't solved the problem yet. I mean, they are.
That's a slightly different issue.
Yeah, and we are, look, I'll be honest with you, we have not, we are working really hard to modernize our entire system, because a lot of our, and I agree with you with best practices, but a lot of the way things were done here, just like I described the building stuck in 1985, a lot of what we do is stuck in 1985. I always joke, we have.
So are you
Yeah.
working with the council to help them understand how they
Yes,
can,
and the counselor can do her answer, but
and
it's,
I want to say
yes.
thank you for your service, because
Yeah.
it's volunteer, it's a lot of work, and I appreciate it. But this is an issue that I really think needs to be addressed, so that we're not faced with these problems. Either it's the wrong person in the job, not enough resources. I don't know what the answer is. I don't want to go back over it again. I just want to know what this current council is doing to make sure that those things don't get repeated.
So I think what I'm hearing you ask is, what do we think we can do to make sure that the manager is properly overseeing the
Correct.
work of their
Correct.
people?
We know you don't have day management.
Exactly. So, no, I mean, the manager reports to us, and it's up to us to make sure that the township is running smoothly as possible with the resources that it has. And in my opinion, if I think that something's not working well, and Mr. Lapola knows, he's heard from all 7 of us at different points, I do expect that the person in the job get to the bottom of it, whether it's a system that's broken, or a process that's not in place, or a policy, or maybe it's an issue with the employee. So I expect the manager, and I want to give the manager the ability to address personnel potential issues, if that's what it is. And
Yeah.
so, I think that's a really important part of the job, and that's something that is important to me in looking for the next person who steps
Yeah.
up.
And I want to, you mentioned something that I want to talk about a little bit, because I think there's this misconception about, we were going through the budget thing last year, and people are saying, you should cut yours. You have all these people working for you. It's me, a deputy, and a secretary. There's not this huge staff up there that's doing all of this stuff, except, we have, our uniformed personnel, they're staffed well, but the rest of our government is, if you went to Edgemont Park last night, we had over 400 people at the Winter Wonderland with rides and snow and Santa Claus and lighting a big fake tree, and it was amazing. And our recreation department puts on events like this. They run all the sporting organizations. There's 4 people do all of this work. 4. People think that there's dozens there. It's just amazing to me how much they do with so little. So there is an issue of enough for the demands, the growing demand. It's tough, especially in a budget like this, to have the resources. And one other thing I wanted to touch on, because it's something I'm going to be talking about some of our inefficiencies. Over the years, well-intentioned governing bodies, mayors and councils in the past, have created all these regulations. For example, if you want to sell candles at a fair, you have to tell us where the wax came from. We do background checks on people who come in for the day, but we can't do background checks for people who were employed at a restaurant around the corner. I sign my name on permits at least 50, it seems like 50 times a day. And so much of what information we seek and other things may have been relevant 40 and 50 years ago. but it isn't anymore. So we're going to work on cleaning that up to take away, if you come to town and you need a permit for something, it's paperwork, it's expensive, and you say to yourself, why? Why do I have to provide this information? What's the relevance? It's because over time, we've never taken a hard look, and this group has said, let's get that, let's go through it, let's see where we can get rid of all of this, and it is a bureaucratic nightmare for us too.
What would your suggestion be for how the council could monitor and make sure that the person in your position is actually making sure that the work gets
Well,
done?
we,
If not, bringing
sure.
it to the council's attention, hey, we have a resource issue.
And they no, trust me, I never stop complaining about the shortage of resources, but that's, we,
I understand maybe you personally are doing that.
yeah.
What's your
Look, I encourage them to talk to the employees directly. I don't say, I'm the boss, you have to call me first. They talk to Austin, Roberto, to Judy, that's fine. And that's important because they need to know, you're never going to know how government works unless you talk to the people who are doing the day-to-day work and just not me, right? So go talk to them, see what they do. You want to take a tour of a facility, you want to ride in a police car for a shift. I urge them, and the police welcome it, I urge them to do things like that because they have to get a sense, talk to the employees. Look, this is me. Last winter, the first snowstorm, I bought 6 dozen donuts at Dunkin' Donuts, got to the yard at 5 o'clock in the morning and spent the day on a plow. I did that. My father was a public works director. I know enough about snow from the turnpike, and I thought it important that these guys and women are going out there at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're going to plow and keep the streets safe. I'm going to go with them and see what they're doing and have enough respect for what they do. We have a controversy now, which is really not it shouldn't be a controversy. In our public works yard, we have the garage, we pick up our own trash. So all the garbage trucks go into one place. And we have a problem with pigeons because garbage brings vermin. And I'm not talking about a couple of pigeons. I'm talking about if you go there in the warmer weather. So you can't use part of the building. You have pigeons in there all the time. You have trucks covered in bird. And the employees, think about this. If we were talking about a location where it was, a bunch of accountants or a bunch of nurses or a bunch of lawyers, would we be debating and people coming to the microphone to mock the fact that we have to keep the birds out? I don't think so. Just because these hardworking men and women go out and collect your trash, they're entitled to work in a safe, healthy environment. I don't care, it costs a lot of money, but it's a problem that we have to fix. So I think it's a health issue, it's a respect for work issue, because it's not the most glamorous job, and a lot of times not the most appreciated job, but it's hard work and they earn their pay. So that's an issue when you talk about things about, and we're sitting there and it's been debated and there's members of the public mocking the issue. There's nothing to mock here. This is a health issue for employees. Imagine going home from work covered in bird crap and trying to explain to your kids you work in a place where you have to worry about that. I don't think so. So I just wanted to make that point too, because when those people were being so sarcastic about the issue, I was offended on multiple levels. Because here, while I'm there, whether you're the manager or the engineer or the guy in the back of the garbage truck, everyone is treated with respect. And often, we do have some residents who have a hard time with that concept. So, sure.
That's really great information, everything that you guys are talking about. Maybe I've been here so long now. Is there like a listing of all the different issues that we have, like that we might see around town? Is there somewhere that information is being kept so
We are.
can see the priorities?
We are updating our whole website and providing information where you should be able to go on and get a lot more information, provide feedback on things, and that's a new priority, and we're investing in that and trying to make it so that you can see, sure. So.
Yeah, just 2 questions. Recycling. I used to be able to take a lot of recycling
I don't, is Austin still here?
That was a staffing issue. We had to eliminate that
During COVID, it was eliminated, right? I'll talk to them again. I didn't know that was how it was done before, but we can take a look at that.
Great. And the other question is back to the budget. So, for example, the senior center, you have to bond to pay for that.
No, the senior center, we're leasing space in the Mills building. So that's not a bond.
Okay, but
Right.
for something for a building or a roof, you have to bond. The interest charges that you pay, is that subject to the 2% cap?
No,
Oh, it's not.
no. The debt service, there's certain things that are outside. And they, look, I know years ago there was, and I don't know, I know you were on council, there was an issue with the amount of debt when they were still running the schools, and there was a concerted effort, a very successful effort to reduce the amount of debt. But we're at that point now where, as you look at our debt service schedule moving forward, going past like the next 10 years, it takes a major dip. So we can do these big projects without having a catastrophic impact on every homeowner. And look, if we're going to do these projects, just the development alone of the plans, input, and everything else, I would say if we started tomorrow, seriously, the doors wouldn't open for 3.5 or 4 years. So it takes a long time. They're big projects, they're expensive projects, there's standards that have to be done, especially for a police department. Anyone else? And if you need to talk to me about something, about your individual issues, I have business cards. I'll be happy to give you one, and you can call my office, come by, whatever. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lapola. Rick, can you help me? I want to. We have 24 minutes, and I think we have this space until close to 9. So, but I do want to leave enough time in case you all have some additional questions. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, and I'm happy to talk to you about it some more if you'd like afterwards. But I just have to say that we have some really dedicated, talented, very professional employees in our town. And I think what my point was that I think we, if a problem is raised to our attention, I want to know, if it happens once, maybe it's not, maybe it's an anomaly. But if there's a pattern, I want to know. I want the manager to find out what the issue is. It's not my job to do that. Okay, I might be curious, and there are lots of times when I kind of want to talk to the people on my own, but that's not that's the manager's job. So my expectation is that the manager is going to be able to do that. That having been said, we're coming out of a number of years here where trust in the government and the council people has been at an all-time low. So our group has inherited that, and as have the employees. So my hope is that we're going to be able to change this and turn it around so that people can do their job.
I don't object to paying taxes in this town. I'm probably maybe one of the few people who don't, but I think that most of our money goes to good use, and we certainly need to educate everybody. And I've had nothing but really positive experiences with the employees. So it's, I'm not being critical of the employees.
No, I'm not taking it that way.
I just was struck how so many problems were not surfaced until it was too late.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a structural problem that the manager needs to be able to address. And you folks have to be on top of that.
Right, yes. They should be addressed quickly and not be allowed to fester.
And cheaper too, because we wouldn't have lost it.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm just going to really quickly, I wanted to just give a very quick update about what I've been up to, but also some of my council members, and then allow for more discussion. I want to just briefly touch on the transportation idea and then open it up for discussion. So I myself am on 3 committees, standing committees: the Economic Development Committee, Mobility Committee and Human Services and Public Safety Committee. I'm also one of 3 council liaisons to the Vision Zero Task Force, along with, I think, Councilor, is Councilor Eric D'Amato here? Oh, there you are, okay. Your first ward councilor. And the purpose of these committees are so that, due to the limitations of the Open Public Meetings Act, if more than 3 of us are gathered to conduct or discuss town business, that's a violation of the law. So we put together these working groups of 2 or 3 of us. Matters are referred to these committees so that we can sort of have in-depth discussion and do work through issues. Issue sort of advisory statements to the rest of the council, recommendations, and so we can have a free dialogue about it. So just in terms of, I am working on also some ordinances with my council, some of my committee members. So one that I wanted to make you aware of is pretty far along. Suzanne Affman, who's the chair of the Montclair Environmental Commission, is right there. We've been working with myself and primarily myself and Councilor Birmingham. We've been working with her on and a couple of other members on this, what we're calling Skip the Stuff. And Skip the Stuff is basically a movement in New Jersey. But what it is the purpose of it is to reduce the amount of plastic and solid waste in our landfills. So, I get, how many of you get, when you order Chinese food, those little plastic packets of duck sauce and mustard and, chili sauce? If you order like things from a diner, you get like 1 million ketchup packets. And then you get like these, the packets of forks and knives and cutlery, right? You don't need them. And so the majority of them, I don't know about you, but I usually, you can't recycle those plastic bits. So they have to go into the landfill. So the purpose of this ordinance is to prohibit restaurants and food service providers in Montclair from just automatically including plastic and napkins that are intended for one use in delivery and takeout orders, unless you specifically ask for them. So this, we wanted to this seemed fairly non-controversial. The ordinance was introduced. We did a lot of work on crafting the language. We looked at other municipalities' ordinances, and we introduced it for first reading on the 26th of November, and it's up for a second reading and public hearing where you can come and give your thoughts about this ordinance on the 17th. We're hoping to get it on the 17th and pass it that day. So I sort of saw it as a low-hanging fruit. It seemed like a win-win for the businesses. They don't have to waste money, spend a lot of money buying these things. It's a win for our environment. It's a win for keeping these things out of our landfills. So, and it also is consistent with our commitment to sustainability. The enforcement will be through the Department of Health. Because, and we decided that would make sense. We had a discussion with the the director of the Department of Health, because they actually do annual inspections of the restaurants and the first food service providers and issue annual certifications. And for me, it's less about being punitive than really effectuating a culture change, right? So you don't have, people aren't stuck with these drawers and boxes full of useless things, basically. And also, we will be at the forefront in the state of being a municipality that adopts this type of ordinance. A lot of other municipalities are considering this. And there's also state-level legislation that is being discussed right now. So I think it'll be really great. It's going to be followed by a very robust education campaign. We want to do social media. We want to let people know what this is. We want to create toolkits for the restaurant owners and make sure that they're going to be helped along when, if somebody says, well, why aren't you giving me this? They'll be able to say this is the law. And so we're really excited about that. So I want to thank everybody who's worked on that and the council for passing it on the first reading unanimously. Okay, and then next, this is, I guess, technically an amendment to an ordinance, but the members of the Vision Zero, the council liaisons, Eric D'Amato, myself, and Mayor Baskerville is also on this committee. We've been working through a draft of a new ordinance. It's actually adding to the chapter, a chapter of the municipal code on streets and sidewalks. It is, we're calling it the Complete Streets Ordinance. I think in the past it's been referred to as a Vision Zero Ordinance. And basically what this is to codify a complete streets policy that our town adopted by resolution way back in 2009. I think we would like to have this codified in a law to sort of boost up our commitment to Vision Zero and the Complete Streets principles. And because as you all know, almost every week we hear about a traffic incident. We hear about serious injuries, people getting killed when they're pedestrians, whether they're pedestrians or drivers or cyclists. And we want to, I think for myself, I think that it's really important to pass an ordinance to just really show that we are going to commit to putting resources behind this and that we want to have every project, every transportation project, every that Vision Zero and Complete Streets are baked into the process of reviewing these projects. So the status right now is that we are reviewing and discussing an advanced draft, and Councilor D'Amato, feel free to chime in if you'd like to. And this draft is also being reviewed by Township staff, who are going to be ultimately responsible for implementing it, and the task force. And we are hoping that we'll be able to introduce this sometime in the new year. Some of the proposals that are being discussed include creation of a Complete Streets Oversight Board, which we would envision being made up of staff, employees, including a member of the police department, as well as members of the governing body and members of the public. We also are considering designation of an employee to serve as the director, basically, the person who's in charge of implementing this ordinance, and sort of be, I guess the idea is to have sort of a central point, and it's really about accountability. We don't want this ordinance to just be passed and not be acted upon, right? I mean, that being said, we haven't really worked out the details yet of what that would look like, if it would be a new person or somebody who's already, I mean, you just heard that we were looking to, our budget is tight. It's going to be tight. So it's possible, perhaps, that we might appoint someone who is already an employee to serve in this capacity if the ordinance passes with this in this with this idea. Another proposal that's in the draft ordinance that we're discussing is the idea of a project prioritization process that should be created by the Oversight Board. And so the purpose of that, I think, is because almost on a daily basis, the council people, we get notified of problematic intersections, people having close calls. And it's just, it seems like a never-ending type of situation. And so how do we prioritize those projects? We have only so much in the budget, so many resources. How are we going to decide what's most important? So in this ordinance, we hope that we're going to have something in there that says that a process has to be developed to enable us to be able to make decisions about what's first, and what comes next, what's in line. So those are sort of the main things. Councilor D'Amato, do you want to add to that?
I just wanted to come say hi to, obviously, I'm gonna keep you with my great support. Just kick
looking around the house. No, I just wanted to say that, if you live in the first ward or anywhere nearby, I'm always here. Call me about anything. On the complete streets ordinance, this is one of the big things that we're working on right now. Some people don't really understand why it's taking a while. There are a lot of moving pieces, and we're trying to be creative, but also not too creative. The background on it is that this is the third time that there has been an attempt to codify in law a complete streets rubric to really sort of force action. The first time in 2009, I believe. It was done on one level with a certain, just rough outlines, and then it was folded a decade later into the master plan, and still not much has happened. And so this third time is an attempt to really have a sort of almost ironclad system of checklists that you have to follow and a new governance structure. And I hope that we can find a way to have a dedicated person, not only just to force the process from within, but to be that point person, that public-facing, executive-type person who can handle all of the incredible volume of incoming concerns and like news reports from residents about street safety and street design and calming and all these things, including like right outside here, you'll notice, that Norwood Avenue, my street, has parking on both sides, and therefore becomes this like strange video game when you drive down and somebody's going back and forth, and is that good, is that bad? It's all, so to have one person who's really, really the face of and a knowledgeable, really driven person is the dream.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we just want to make sure that it's going to be, we're going to be able to operationalize the law. We don't want there to be yet another policy and no action, no real substantive action, no coordinated action for another 10 years or whatever it is. So that's why we want to be very thoughtful about it, but we also want to move it forward. Okay, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is, and Councilor Williams is much more hands-on with this, is an amendment to the existing overnight street parking ordinance. It's in the data analysis stage. We've gotten a lot of information from Mr. Hermano, who's the director of the parking utility. And this has come out of, almost as soon as we took office, we started getting a bunch of emails from, various wards complaining about getting ticketed for parking overnight. And so because of the volume, I think we saw that we would need, well, first of all, you have to, if we want to add additional streets that are exempted from the law that prohibits overnight street parking, they have to be added to the ordinance by amendment. But the other thing is that from my perspective, and we had a discussion about this with staff, is I think it would be helpful to get some parameters around how we're going to decide which streets are going to be added to the ordinance. Because Mr. Hermano actually did some research, and when streets were added in the past, it wasn't really clear how those decisions were made. So we have talked and come up with a list of some criteria, like how far away the residents on the block, how far away the block is from the nearest parking lot. For example, what percentage of multifamily homes are on the block? Just things like that. That will give us a better idea of how we're going to make a fair decision. So that's another thing that we're working on. Quickly, I wanted to just give a very brief update. We've been trying to provide updates at the end of every council meeting although they've been very long. So I appreciate that a lot of people probably don't know what's going on. And I want to preface this by saying I'm very, very appreciative of Mr. Lapola and the dedication that he's brought to this work. He's brought a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, and he's been so helpful in addressing all of the issues that we bring to his attention. And he has agreed to stay until we are able to complete this search and get the new, the permanent town manager installed. I think this was an opportunity that the current council wanted to take. We want the ability to do a proper search and find someone who can be with us permanently. And just have a fresh start. So the current status, we signed a contract with a search firm called Jersey Professional Management back in September. Since then, the full council has provided a lot of input to the search firm in creating a job description, an ideal candidate profile based on what we think is right for, what kind of skills we need in Montclair, as well as a township profile. So far, we've received 32 applications, which is, quite frankly, it's more than I thought we were going to get. But we have some very strong candidates, and presently we are we're going to be scheduling preliminary interviews with 8 of the candidates who have all been asked to submit their answers to a questionnaire. That the questionnaire was developed by the search firm to gauge, more of like their technical skills, their technical knowledge, find out more about their experience, and it's sort of like a screening. It's been used as a screening tool. So the full council is going to be meeting with these 8 candidates for very brief interviews, and that's the status. We are also looking for a permanent, town attorney. The current attorney is Mr. Burr, who has been interim for quite a number of years. And again, I want to go on the record as saying that he has been very, very helpful to us and very responsive to all of our questions and requests for advice. So, but sort of along the same lines. So an RFP was recently issued and it was published. A deadline for proposals under that RFP just passed yesterday, and we're going to be getting the proposals that we received very shortly. We're also advertising in other forums. So I'm just putting it out there that if you know of anyone who might be very well qualified and interested, please reach out to us.
I would just add that the RFP is actually for law firms, which in most towns like our size, communities of our size, the norm would be that the attorney would not be necessarily an employee of the town, but there would be a law firm of record, and you wouldn't know the difference. That attorney would sit in the meeting every time, but they would be a dedicated municipal attorney. And we have, a tradition here of having a full-time employee, and I think either approach has pros and cons, but right now we're soliciting responses for both, and we'll look at both, and we'll discuss over that. In terms of the manager and the management, I think it's a fresh start that we want to have, while keeping all the great things that Mr. Lapola and even his predecessors may have added, is to really refocus the community on the reality that the manager and manager's office is the executive body of the government. Truly, it is. They are the CEO. They are the ones who are running the things. We are a board of directors or a legislature, and we, and this is not to shirk work onto them, but the system, if it is operating well, if there's a short-term need for something to happen that is not policy-based, just a failure of the existing policy to work, let's say, a pothole to something serious, they're the people that we should go to, all of us should go to, not just us, by everybody here, and that when they don't do it, it is escalated to the board of directors. Or when there's a longer-term interest and concern that we should be doing something differently as a matter of policy, that's when we should be engaged. Because otherwise, if we're just drowning in oftentimes duplicative requests, constituent requests, we never get to do the long-range planning. We never get to look at that longer horizon, and that's how we end up with things like a library building that doesn't need to work and so forth and so on. So, again, that's not to say that people should leave for us.
Okay, thank you. So next, I'm going to move on to a little bit of, just a short conversation about something that I'm personally very passionate about is transportation initiatives. So we talked about, complete streets, and this, to me, this is part of that whole ideal to have fewer cars on the street, especially for 1 mile long distances, right? So the idea is to have a town shuttle bus or jitney, and another idea is to approach New Jersey, re-engage New Jersey Transit to see if they might be able to expand service in Montclair. DeCamp bus, as you know, is no longer in service. The trains on the weekends, especially, they're very limited schedule, and they stop at Bay Street. So my understanding is that there has been a shuttle bus or a jitney in the past, but I'll get into that for a second. I just wanted to get a visual up on the screen right now. Township staff created this, and what I'd asked for is a map showing where all of the train stations are and the bus stops, New Jersey Transit. So we have these 6 train stations all over here, and these are all bus stops. They're designated bus stops, New Jersey Transit. And you can see that there are gaps here. Like, I think this is Grove Street. There are big gaps where people can't, they would have to drive to the train station. There's some holes there, right? So just as I mentioned, historically, there was in the past a shuttle that ran from the Bay Street station to the estate section, which is the section to the left. However, it was put out of service because of poor ridership. And so I think, why am I thinking that this might be a good idea to revisit now, right? A few reasons. Traffic congestion, as I said, we want to make sure we try to reduce the number of cars on the street. There's an equity issue. People don't have access to the public transportation. There are sections of town where, it's a greater distance for them to get to the train, and environment, right? Especially if we are able to get an electric vehicle or electric fleet to serve as a jitney service. So as Princeton has just recently purchased electric vehicles, there are other towns that are doing this. Of course, it's going to cost money. We have to look at the long-term costs. We also have to do some research to gauge how much ridership we would be able to get to be able to create like a regular service to keep it up, and a lot of other details. I was just recently at the League of Municipalities. I went to one particularly, they had several sessions about municipal transportation, and one was on clean transportation, and sort of walked through a lot of very helpful information about how we can sort of prepare and get the data together to be able to support a plan. So I'm kind of just putting it out there because I want you to know that this is something of interest. Councilor Birmingham and Councilor Toller are also, they've expressed to me that they're interested in helping to work on this. I've started reaching out to some individuals who in the past have been involved in discussions around these issues, and who might be interested in joining a working group to be able to, work on these issues. And so I would love to know, I know we're short on time now, if you can reach out to me, if you think that this might be something worth pursuing, if you think that it would be of interest. I know that I've spoken with some members of the senior community who have said that they would like this, they would support this idea. I've also spoken with parents with children who are high school and middle school students. They don't drive, they don't have a car. And some of them are outside the busing, the busing area for free busing. So they've expressed that they think that youth would be interested in using this type of service. Basically, just want to know what you think. Yes?
I definitely agree with that idea. And another thing that you could add to that is having a short of from Montclair State College, go all the way to Church Street, and stopping at the two supermarkets, because that way that will get income from King's and Acme, and they go around. I used to think that the town is supposed to be, not segregated or anything like that, but because of the transportation, the town itself is segregated. It's like Charlie lives on Lincoln Avenue, and he wants to meet his friend at Applegate Ice Cream. Unless his parents want to bring him, there's no way. So I think I've been advocating for that for many years, but nobody paid attention, so thank you.
We in the senior transportation committee have been trying to put this together. We run the Easy Ride program for seniors, but it's really something that is not sustainable. We don't want to have 5,000 Ubers running around town. So we would love to work with you on, this is the same idea that we've been starting with the hospitals, with groceries, with the school up at, state, and bringing together the bid and some of the upper, there's a lot of community groups that if we could band together, I think that we would, it could be really successful.
Yes?
In addition to the shuttle, which I think is a great idea, can you talk what you're thinking about bicycle, bike lanes, if that's part of the Vision Zero plan?
That's part of the Complete Streets, concept. And I think it would be great to have protected bike lanes. I think we would need to know, I'm not really sure, I think to have protected bike lanes and specific streets would be a place to start in identifying those streets, because I'm not really sure how feasible it would be for it to be an entire network. Yeah, right.
But that's not
I think that, who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
I think that is the town, but yeah.
More of it, like more of that.
Yes.
I think that was like
Yes,
a
Mr.
demonstration idea to see.
So
What was
I
it?
mean-
Yes.
Yeah, so we did commence that bike lane starting from Montclair Avenue, heading east to Bay Street, the Greenway. That's the Greenway. That initial phase is completed, obviously. We're currently in the next phase, we're calling it 1B, of extending that down to Lachlan Plaza. However, that's being done through the state, with state funding. So it's in the works, but it's a process. So that's in the works, and then in the future that will continue in that line all the way through the Bay Street station. So it's in the works, but it's just
Gonna take time. Okay. Before, it's 8:38, I wanted to just address a couple of questions that were emailed to me, if you don't mind. A resident, Salima Elamam, asked about the status of the contract with a company called Zen City that recently came before us in a resolution. and wanted to know whether or not the township manager's office currently uses the Zen City software, and if this monitoring software is already in use. And so the answer to that question is no, the township is not using this. There's no contract. There's been some demos that were presented to us from the staff members by the company, but because there's no contract, it's not in use. So I hope that answers your question. Another resident just reached out shortly before this meeting and asked if we could if I could address the number of vacant storefronts throughout town and especially uptown. I am not really that prepared to address that right now, but I would like to respond by saying that I'd be interested. I would like to reach out to the planning office to find out, you know, how many vacant properties we have in the districts and how long they've been vacant, things like that. So I'll get back to the resident as soon as I can. Are there any other comments or questions before I let you all go?
Just one quick point on the complete streets and Vision Zero. It's my understanding that like Montclair and the Coalition is working closely with you guys to consult to do that.
Yeah, we have a lot of representation on the task force right now. Yes, including county. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I thank you so much for staying and joining and being so engaged, and feel free to reach out anytime. Appreciate you.
Thank you.